Have you ever done something in your life that felt right at the time, but years later you couldn't stop thinking about how different things might have been if you'd chosen another path? Maybe it was a decision about love, or work, or even something small that spiraled into something bigger. And no matter how much you try to move on, that one moment keeps coming back to you, making you wonder, what if? You know that feeling, right? Well, you're definitely not alone. Even the most famous people in the world, the ones we think have it all figured out, carry regrets with them. And sometimes those regrets stay hidden for decades before they finally find the courage to talk about them. That's exactly what happened with John Malkovich. For years, he's been one of Hollywood's most fascinating actors. He's known for being mysterious, for choosing roles that make you think, and for having this unique presence on screen that no one else can really match. But behind all of that success, behind the fame and the talent, he was carrying a secret regret. And not just any regret, it was about his relationship with one of the biggest stars of the time, Michelle Pfeiffer. Yes, Michelle Pfeiffer. The two of them were caught up in an affair while working together, and it ended up changing both of their lives. And now, after staying quiet for so long, John Malkovich has finally admitted that this affair is one of the biggest regrets of his life. He explained how it started, what it cost him, and why it still weighs heavily on him even decades later. This isn't just some Hollywood scandal story. It's about choices, about love, about temptation, and about the way a single moment can leave a mark on your life forever. And honestly, that's something we can all connect to. So, let's walk through this story step by step, and along the way, maybe you'll see parts of your own experiences reflected here too. Let's start at the beginning. The year was 1988, and John Malkovich and Michelle Pfeiffer were filming Dangerous Liaisons. Now, if you've ever seen that movie, you know it's full of passion, manipulation, and intense emotions. It's one of those films where the lines between performance and reality can get blurry really fast. On set, actors spend hours together, day after day, playing out deep, emotional scenes. And sometimes, that energy doesn't stay on the screen, it spills over into real life. That's what happened with Malkovich and Pfeiffer. The thing is, John was already married at the time. His wife, Glenne Headly, was also an actress. They had built a life together. But being on that set, sharing those moments with Michelle, John started feeling something he couldn't ignore. And if you've ever been in a situation where you find yourself drawn to someone, even when you know it's complicated, you know how confusing that can feel. That chemistry, that connection. It's powerful, and sometimes it pulls you in before you even realize what's happening. The affair between John and Michelle wasn't something they talked about publicly back then. They kept it hidden, but people close to the production noticed. Rumors spread, and whispers followed them. And while they might have felt a spark, that spark came with consequences that neither of them could fully escape. For John, it meant the end of his marriage. His relationship with Glenne Headly couldn't survive what had happened. And for Michelle, it meant being part of a story she probably never wanted her name tied to. You know, we often look at celebrities and think their lives are so different from ours. We see the red carpets, the photo shoots, the awards, and we forget they're just people too. They get caught up in emotions, they make mistakes, and sometimes they break things they can't fix. The difference is, when they stumble, the whole world is watching. What makes this story even more heartbreaking is that the affair didn't even last. John and Michelle had undeniable chemistry, but their relationship fizzled out. What was left behind were broken pieces, a marriage that ended, trust that was lost, and years of silence where John never spoke about what had happened. Can you imagine carrying that kind of weight? Knowing that a decision you made, a choice you followed, not only changed your own life but deeply hurt someone who loved you? For years, John Malkovich stayed quiet. He didn't bring it up in interviews, he didn't write about it, and he didn't fuel the gossip. He just carried it privately. Until recently, when he finally admitted that this was his biggest regret. And that's a powerful thing to say. Think about it. Out of all the choices he's made, all the experiences he's had, the one thing he still wishes he could undo is that affair. Now, why does he see it as his biggest regret? It's not because he didn't care about Michelle. In fact, he admitted that there were feelings there. But when he looks back, what stands out most isn't the passion or the connection, it's the cost. The cost was losing his marriage, hurting people he loved, and realizing that what felt right in the heat of the moment didn't hold up against the long-term damage it caused. And isn't that something we can all relate to? How many times in life have we let short-term feelings or impulses guide us, only to realize later that we sacrificed something far more important? It might not be an affair, but it could be quitting a job too soon, walking away from a friendship, or even saying something we didn't mean in anger. In those moments, it's easy to let emotions take over. But looking back, we often see things much more clearly. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Experts who study relationships say that affairs aren't always about the other person. More often than not, they're about what's missing in your own life at the time. For John, maybe it wasn't just about Michelle. Maybe it was about the pressure of Hollywood, the demands of his career, and the search for something that felt real in a world that can often feel fake. And you know what? Regret, as painful as it is, can actually be a good thing. Relationship counselors often say regret is a sign of growth. It forces us to look at ourselves, to recognize what we did wrong, and to make sure we don't repeat the same mistake. For John, that regret wasn't just about Michelle, it was about not protecting what he already had, about not valuing his marriage enough in that moment to fight for it. And that's a tough lesson, but it's also a human one. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever had a moment you look back on and think, if I could do it all over again, I'd choose differently? Most of us have. And while those regrets can sting, they can also shape us. They remind us of who we don't want to be, and they push us to make better choices in the future. So, when John Malkovich finally admitted that his affair with Michelle Pfeiffer was his biggest regret, he wasn't just confessing to a scandal. He was sharing a piece of his humanity. He was saying, I made a mistake. I hurt people. And I wish I could undo it. That kind of honesty isn't easy, especially when the whole world is listening. But it's also the kind of honesty that makes people connect to him on a deeper level. And here's a thought. Maybe regrets aren't meant to disappear. Maybe they're meant to stay with us, not to punish us, but to remind us of the kind of people we want to become. For John, this regret became a part of his story. It didn't define him completely, but it shaped him in ways he couldn't ignore. And maybe that's true for all of us too. So, let me ask you this, do you think people should share their regrets openly, like John did? Or do you think some things are better left in the past, locked away where no one else can see them? I'd love to know what you think, because everyone has their own perspective on this. And if this story grabbed your attention, you'll definitely want to check out our other video about the Hollywood affairs that shocked everyone. There are stories out there you won't believe until you hear them. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. We're always diving into the untold stories, the behind-the-scenes truths, and the moments that show us that even celebrities are just as human as we are. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes these stories so powerful. They're not just about Hollywood. They're about us.